Hey,
You fucking idiot.
Imagine like trying to call your son or daughter. You're like, but I can't raise my voice because you're too stupid to like see the common sense. And you're like, Max. He's downstairs. I just can't get to him.
He's like putting his hand into like the miter saw. Max.
I'm gonna move slowly because I don't want to scare you and imprint memories into you about quick moving objects being dangerous.
I'm visualizing him moving his hand.
Being safe. I'm not afraid of him cutting his hand off.
I am visualizing saws that do not cut.
I don't think about what I want. I think about what I want. I want him
Shit, but the store is closed.
I want you to shut the fuck up. I want to stop being broke.
I am grateful in advance for you shutting the fuck up. Thank you.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit. Let's just
slap it up.
Like the whole thing of
call it Sally.
Of thinking about like, okay, the universe gives me something. You know, like there's a truth in it, obviously. Like meaning, what can I say? It's like, dude, I'm not of my own personal will, like manifesting everything, you know, that I'm experiencing. Meaning, I'm not like consciously doing all of that. So there is an element where the universe is here, the world is here, and it's.
Be more specific, because if we're talking about this, is because we're solving the point in other people that have that.
And here's what the point looks like. Here's what the just so you're aware, Cam, I know you're really practical, you know, you talk to us a lot of the time and we're pretty much like, we're there with you, right?
Cameron, you've lost touch with the average Joe.
I'm just
you forget how stupid.
I'm wearing a Wrangler snap shirt, okay?
You're a different kind
of.
Are
you wearing Dickies pants? Are you wearing Dickies pants?
Levi's.
Okay.
Whoa, wait. Before we go too far, guys.
Boots. He's gonna pull his fucking boots on the fucking table.
Dude, did you manifest these boots from the universe?
Oh,
what the fuck? Are you wearing Crocs? Jesus.
Camo Crocs at that. Camo Crocs.
Please tell me they're actually Crocs and not some off-brand of Crocs.
Crocs with socks.
Wow, they're Crocs. And Cameron, can you bring that to the gin event?
Probably.
Me, you, and Carl Van Camelback will
Crocs with Carhartt socks.
Wow. What does your hat say? Oh, Team Life.
Team Life.
Dude, no, you're out of touch now. You almost had it until you had the Team Life hat.
Cam's a working man.
Okay, Drake, go for it.
All right, so I went on Facebook, right, and I typed in law of attraction, right, because I wanted to see, you know, what kind of groups are out there for the law of attraction. I know we have the gin groups. And I'm like, yeah, these guys are into law of attraction. Maybe there's other cool people like the people in gin in other law of attraction groups who haven't heard of gin yet, right? So I type in law of attraction, virtually every group, every single one. You start looking at the posts and I'm like, oh, this group has a lot of engagement. Man, a lot of people are into the law of attraction. The post is like, if you like this picture, you will not be broke. I swear, just do it. And it'll have like
111.
Yeah. And then it'll have like put 111 in the chat or 1111 in the chat in the comments. And like you'll see literally hundreds, thousands of people will like the photo and then type 111 or whatever it is, right? 555, whatever it is. Like they think it's like some kind of casino game where you just press the button and like, oh, here it comes.
Dude,
Yes.
I will go in those groups and I will just post, stop deluding people. If you think this is how reality works, you're stupid. And it's so fun to see the responses because you'll get a few people that are like, huh, what do you mean? And they'll actually engage. And most people will be like, no, you know, and just their whole bullshit.
People are thinking that you're coming from the alternate, the opposite side, which is
fuck law of attraction, doesn't exist.
Just accept things as the way you were taught they were. Because one of the things about law of attraction type thing is it gets those people who are questioning how things are.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, things are not like concrete, set in stone. Like you can change things. You can create your own reality. You can create your own life. You don't have to accept reality as it is. So when you say, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit, they're thinking, oh, you're just, it's kind of like the atheist versus theist. The atheist just like versus the theist, like they're really two sides of the same thing. The starting point's the same. So when you challenge people and say it's a bunch of bullshit, they're assuming, I think, that you're on that side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus we're not saying we don't create reality and that you can't mold and shape reality in the way you focus on things. It's just, I mean, think about it. If the universe, if the world, if reality actually worked on the principle of if you type 555 on a fucking Facebook picture, if it gave you money, if it actually worked like that, isn't that kind of missing the whole point of the law of attraction? The concepts that, isn't that missing the whole point that you're a creator?
Why is that? Why is that?
Because what does it mean to be a creator?
You
That
create.
you create. You're not just given shit.
But yeah, like look at that for a moment. Like people think creation in that context is I'm a creator, therefore I just wish for something and it appears. That's not creating something.
But Cam, the post said I just have to claim it, and it's here.
It's like a lottery ticket. Like you found a lottery ticket. You just got to go claim it. You
Yo,
gotta
isn't
go.
that the same
Exactly.
as like the email scam of like, oh, we like this is the IRS and we found, or like a text message, you're like, this is the IRS and you have to claim your $500, $559 that we forgot to give you for your tax.
That's one of the challenges of working within the law of attraction community is those people are generally extremely low vocabulary.
Yeah.
That's why they're so gullible into thinking you can just wish for shit and it comes to you. But
I like the way
cool
you
thing
said
about
gullible.
it is they're teachable in the sense that they were willing to question things. They're willing to accept a totally absurd view of reality and like just get rid of another one. So what's cool is with what we have as the tools that we have, that person can upgrade their vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's much more difficult to take the person who already has the high vocabulary in terms of making money and so forth and get them to adopt principles and stand up and do what's best because they're already good. This other person at least is looking and searching, right? Well, yeah, but they're like, fuck that. I don't want to challenge my position. If I question anything, it's going to like, I'm under pressure. So it's kind of like, who do you want to work with? Right.
And that's why, like, if you really look at the, like in terms of like the destiny, right? Because you ever hear people say, oh, you guys are picking on people who are weak or who are vulnerable or something like that. Is it cutting out for me?
It is.
It was a little bit. It's okay though.
Like your mouth does not
But,
share words right now.
But it's like somebody who is, like you said, I love the amount of money I make. I'm happy with my relationship, all that stuff. They're not going to change. Now, but the thing is, at every level that I've ever found that, it was only a matter of time till the person was honest with themselves to say, okay, my relationship isn't great. My children aren't great. Like I'm actually not fulfilled in my life. Okay. Like I'm listening, right? So it's just about, it's a lot harder to be honest with yourself when you have a bunch of social approval in your environment. But typically it's like, yeah, I'm kind of happy that I was, that I wasn't successful in the system. Because, and I mean, when I found Jin actually, because Jin supported me to be successful in the system. And then from there, I was like, okay, there's something to this, just applying the point of, focus and gratitude and things that are like going to take my mood up so I can go be effective in the system. But that only took me to a certain point.
Think about this, like the focusing on what you want. Even if the universe isn't some magical thing that just gives you shit, doesn't the principle of focus on the thing that you want make sense in the principle of that you're creating stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Like even if you just take it into the normal system.
Yeah.
So Jin, it's so interesting because the Jin material isn't really mystical. If you cut out all of if you use discernment, it's really very practical. It's what successful people do.
Yeah.
And so, but the problem is if you challenge somebody of like on the point of the universe isn't just some magical force that's out for your benefit, It's like they think that you have to throw out all the other information. It's like,
Mm.
no, just stop. The problem with it is if you think that the universe is like that, then you actually won't focus yourself properly. You'll sit and you'll just wait. You'll think that creation is thinking about what you want. That's just the first step.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's how I've always figured out what I needed to do is when I thought about, okay, what do I want? Kind of like what we were talking about on the Friday call. Avery was like, I expect you guys to be doing this. He's like, have you guys thought about that at all? Have you guys actually sat down and looked at it?
right. So then it's like injecting a new way of thinking about something,
Mhm.
right? Like, for example, right now I'm building a chicken run, right? And what that is, so you know what a chicken coop is? Like a little building that your chickens can sit in, and then they can lay their
Dude,
eggs.
your
and do
chicken
all this
coop
stuff.
looks like high class chicken coopery, dude.
It's a very nice chicken coop.
Yeah.
I call it a chicken condo. And so, anyways, so it's actually a pretty standard chicken coop.
Yeah, I
but,
saw it on Airbnb actually.
Yeah.
Good reviews.
I was trying to think of a pun with Airbnb and chicken.
I know. I could tell you're
Nothing
cooking up a
was
joke.
coming.
That's where he looks up and to the left if he's really thinking.
Air beacon beak.
Okay.
All right. So,
He
anyways,
ran it through in his head. That was so
the
funny.
chicken coop, the universe was communicating.
The
through me.
universe just gave that one to you.
Wait, I
so
am
blessed.
channeling George Carlin. Okay, so anyways, there's the chicken coop, and the run is like this sort of fenced-in structure outside of that they can go outside of the chicken coop and be in the grass, but it's just fenced in so like predators can't get to them.
You know what's funny?
Okay.
I've seen the movie Chicken Run when I was a kid and had no idea what a chicken run was.
I had that realization too, like that they're playing on that word, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm building the run, which is just basically wooden frame, like two walls, an end part. It's got like a door in it, and I'm going to screen it in with this stuff called hardware cloth, which is basically like kind of like a wire mesh sort of thing. So my point is, at first I had no fucking clue what a chicken run was. Katie kept saying, hey, we're going to have to build a run pretty soon because these chickens are going to get big. And I'm thinking, well, we have a coop. Like, why do you need it? What is a run? Like, what is that? Right? Like, that's my initial point, is like, I don't know what that is. She kept telling me, we're going to need to build that. And I'm like, oh yeah, cool. We'll get to that. Right. So then she's like, yeah, we're going to need it really soon now. So I'm like, okay, let me get on that. So she sent me a video of a woman building one. And then she gives you the plans. I bought the plans a few dollars. You get the plans, right? And then I went and got enough tools and then all of the lumber and stuff, right? And I've been watching the video over and over, put the vocabulary into my techno tutor. And now I'm in the process of physically making it, right? So I had to get the lumber. I had to figure out how long to cut the thing, put it in the saw, cut it. Okay, get the other piece, get them all lined up. I have a nail gun, get them all together and everything, right? Paint it, right? Then I had to, while those are drying, the walls, I'm like building the door. I painted that, let it dry, right? So forth. It's a process, right? So if I only stopped at thinking about, we need a chicken run. Oh, I really want a chicken run and we need to have it. Okay, don't need it. I'm asking for it. I'm asking for the chicken run. I'm going to allow the chicken run to come in. Like, it's not going to just arrive at my doorstep. You might say, and like that I did not build the chicken coop. I mean, I put it together, but I mean, I didn't like cut all the wood and stuff. I just screwed it all together. So I constructed it, but I didn't fully build it myself, right? But how did it get to my door? We thought about the chicken coop. Katie mostly thought about it. She looked at all the different ones. You could get a cheap ass $300 one at your local Tractor Supply or wherever, right? Or you can get the one she was looking at was like base $9,000.
300 to 9,000.
Right. And then she was like, then she starts looking at it and starts looking at all of the details of it. And she's like, oh, actually, this thing's gonna be about 13,000.
Fuck.
Right. She starts doing some more research and everything, figuring it out and everything. And she's like, well, you know what? I saw this other one, actually, the one Owen Benjamin got. Coincidentally, she didn't know until after she got this one that he just got the same one. It was like about $2,000, right? And she's like, well, let's just go ahead and go with that one first. And then over time we can go upgrade and all this stuff, but it seems like it's sufficient. Like, why do we need this really? And eventually I could just build one, right? So anyways, she had to think about it. The one she wanted, there was a process involved, right? Because we were about to just finance the $9,000 one, right? Or the $13,000 one or whatever, right? But then she thought about it and she's like, no, I want to get that $2,000 one. So we got that one. And then eventually it comes to our door, a big semi truck pulls in, drops it off. We have all the pieces, we have to put it together. So there was a point in there where I'm thinking about it. She's thinking about it a lot for like weeks. And then it arrives. But there's a step in between there.
No. Your wife is a powerful manifester.
Right? Yeah.
She was probably spending all of her time in those groups typing 555.
Right.
He was just watching for the one that says,
It's
you
like
need a chicken coop.
Type 222.
It's like my time has come. But it's like I had to have this amount of money and put it into the account of the other place. Then they paid someone to drive a truck. Why does that truck exist? Because somebody has a trucking company, right? And it seems like the one that always delivers big stuff to us. Like there's like a specific company that does that, I
And the
guess.
CEO
Like, deliver to
of
rural
that
areas.
company built that company by manifesting, is what you're trying to say.
No, because he had a business plan. He went to the banks or to some investors or whatever, got financing or however he did it. Maybe he started with one truck and then built, I don't know the story, right? But there's a story behind it. Like there's never any story of an actual real physical person and a business where in the story they're like, yeah, and I just sat and I thought about it and it came to me. The only ones that are like that are the stories about people selling you the law of attraction. But if you actually study the story of how they built their business selling the stuff, they had to do all the physical stuff. They never actually only applied thinking about it.
But
But the thinking is important. What's up?
because you're the elite and you're trying to keep me down. And
Okay, but think about it. Like
CEO of the bank that the moving company built his business with, that guy.
Here's the thing. And you're right in a certain sense, but I'll tell you. Okay, in a second.
The fuck, dude. I'm trying to be a crackhead right now.
No, but there is a point in there, but we talked about it earlier, but I'll bring it back in. But my point is, why is it so profound when you learn about the law of attraction? They're like, okay, look, first you got to think about what you're going to do, what you want. You got to really get clear on that, on what it is that you want. And then you got to start making it happen. Like,
Okay, well, hold on.
back up. Wait.
So
Whoa.
let's focus in on the attraction part.
Okay, that's the point though.
Right.
That I was going to say is where the elite deception is.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to tell you the secrets of how to create anything you want, just like the elite. But then you put this little part in there that says, and then you just think about it. And then
You
it
just
comes.
sit on your ass. You just sit.
No. I'm telling you, you're going to have to do some things. You're going to have to do stuff. But if it feels wrong, just stop.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And just basically, the universe is going to bring it in, and you just match the frequency. So I want you to spend most of your time just trying to match the frequency.
How do I know if I'm on the right frequency?
You'll feel it.
Feel.
You'll feel it.
Dial
No,
in.
seriously, that's what it is, though. You got to dial it in.
We'll
It
get a
has
little
to feel
tingle in there.
Ooh,
Exactly.
I think I just felt
Flying
it.
down your crack. There you go. There it is. Then go use the bathroom. So the point within that is like, okay, the only thing that the elite are focused on is manipulating the way you feel. So why wouldn't they get you to say, hey, use your feelings as the measurement of what you should and shouldn't do?
But then within it, if you looked at all of this and instead of being seduced by it, you actually analyzed it, you'd be like, okay, this is telling me the reality of how the elite control things. This is pretty cool. Like they do base things on their feelings, like what they want and so forth, right? But the physical part of how do you actually create this stuff, that's what's not really clear. And that's the vocabulary. So the thing is, if you have a high vocabulary, or if you can develop your vocabulary, then when you figure out what you want, then you know how to make it happen. But if you have a low vocabulary, your immediate next thought of after you figure out what you want is to go, well, what's the magical thing that's going to give it to me? It's like the kid at Christmas who like wants the toy, but you don't know how to make money. So you just are like, maybe Santa Claus will bring it to me.
So that's this character that's in all of us. It's, well, maybe not in the elite, but it's like the whole programming around Christmas and your birthday and shit's just given to you. And people are just so damn lazy. It's like we've just been so programmed from early on and brainwashed into instant food, instant gratification, just this instant thing. So that's why it's so seductive to say, oh, wait, you're telling me I can just think about it and feel good, and then it will somehow match some frequency and something outside myself can do it. And the problem is if you're so damn lazy that and your vocabulary is so low that you don't even know what to do, or you can't even stay focused long enough on something, you're fucked.
And laziness is a program. When you're programmed to be a slave, you're actually lazy. And it's funny because I work harder than I've ever worked in my life now, both mentally and physically. And I'm the most secure financially that I've ever been. So you would think you would become lazier if that was the case.
Yeah,
right.
it's funny.
Like when I would go to a job, I was thinking about this too. I entertain myself less. I entertain myself by creating stuff now. I used to entertain myself by watching Netflix, and I'm not any, if somebody wants to watch that in a balanced point, it's okay. I'm not dissing that you can never watch TV or anything like that. I'm just saying, I don't even have Netflix. I don't have Hulu. I don't have any of that stuff anymore. I don't even care about it. And I don't dude, I'm not even watching like Tim Pool or anything anymore. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I mean, there's a certain point where I want to keep my finger on the pulse of like what's going on in the world. So I need to know. So I'll check in. But it's like when you have things you want to do, then you're doing that. And I'm not dissing anything. I'm just saying, like, I've noticed that kind of falls away. And the time that I was entertaining myself the most, like binge watching, eating a lot of chips, more overweight because of that, was when I was more just doing jobs for money that I didn't really want to do. I wasn't creating anything. I was just going and doing something to get the money to survive.
Right.
Then it was like, I wanted to spend all of my extra time just basically relaxing. That was always in myself. I just need to relax. And it's like, dude, I don't want to relax anymore. I want to go. I want to like do stuff. And I'm like realizing, wow, fuck, I wasted 30 years of my life. You know what I mean? Like if I had been supported as a child, I wouldn't have had to do that.
Yeah.
So it's not about, oh, people are, and I know what you meant, Mitch. I'm just clarifying for anybody else. Like, it's not about some people are just lazy. It's a program. It's like your program, you're dumbed down as a child. You're put into a system that doesn't teach you how to do anything or give you the vocabulary of figuring anything out. And then all you can do is get a job. So now you just want to fucking go to work, survive, and then spend all your money on entertaining yourself to go back into the fucking thing. Like, that's why people go to clubs and do drinking and all that kind of stuff. They're just like, it's like a sedative to, so you don't have to think about the fact that you got to go spend the rest of your week as a slave. That's all it is.
This has been so fascinating for me because in the past week, Jessica and I moved, and now we have a homestead, right? We have land, we have a garden that we're creating, and just so much stuff. Plus, Jess is still recovering from her leg surgery. So I'm like, I have to do and not everything, because she's doing as much as she can. Like, she's coordinating the lawn service and she's calling people and connecting with neighbors, and she can drive when she can, but like, she really should not be on her leg for another 2 to 4 weeks. And I'm just looking at this, I'm like, I do not have time to even fucking entertain an excuse. Like, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, I am like on. But it is the most fulfilling thing ever. Because I remember, Cam, what you're saying is like, I spent a lot of time binge watching YouTube, eating chips, fucking around, smoking weed, just wasting time, thinking that, oh, well, I'm feeling good or trying to feel good. I'm going to like manifest my dreams. And hey, guess what? It's working. That worked enough. But I also realized I have to take action. Plus, once I had TechnoTutor, it became obvious, oh shit, this is how things work. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to do this. But in terms of like feeling good and feeling that bliss and whatever, I mean, I'm not even trying to think about that. And it's just like this natural thing that emerges now from just showing up, taking responsibility and building, and shit comes up and I'll have some miscommunication with Jess or miscommunication with something else. But it's like, okay, cool. Now this is what I do. And now this is what I do. And I get to see my natural learning ability real time. It's so cool because like in your mind, right? You have that little inkling to go, okay, just type 222 and it'll work out perfectly. But in reality,
Yeah, there's always that
it's like,
point you got to like really check, right?
yeah. And I'm like, okay, for example, we want to have a garden, right? So in my mind, I'm like, okay, this garden, right? And I'm like picturing it in my mind. It's like, it's going to be sick. There's going to be this squash and it's going to grow all over here, right? And we're going to eat the squash. It's going to be amazing. And so day one, right? We have this part of our property where they used to have horses. So the horses have packed down this land like hard. So I bring out my shovel, right? I got my bucket of water so I can pour it on the ground. I have Jess sitting there in the lawn chair. She's like looking, and we're like,
that picture,
okay,
that picture, that's really cool.
yeah, we got 20 plants, right? I'm like, all right, we're gonna make this garden. I start digging into the ground, and after like 3 minutes, I'm like, this is fucked. Like I cannot even get that far into the ground. It's just really dry here too. I'm like, damn. And in my mind, I feel this moment of like, damn, I really thought we were going to have this garden today. Like, we got to find a tiller. Next phase, right? Okay, go knocking on the neighbor's door. Hey, do you guys have a tiller? Yeah, we do. But it's like, what they say is like, I don't know if it works anymore. Okay. So we spent an hour trying to get this old tiller to work. And then that didn't, and it's just, then they're like, well, the neighbors have a better one. So it's like this whole thing just to make a garden.
Wow.
I'm like, damn. And you have that moment of like, what if I just go to the grocery store instead of having a garden? But then I'm like, no, like that's stupid. Like we can figure this out, right? But it's like this thing. And then it's, okay, we're not even going to figure it out today. So now tomorrow, okay, now we got a manual tiller doing that. And then even that was still like, it wasn't good enough. And then Jess brought up to me, she goes, it would actually be best for the plants if we have these other friends who have this tiller behind a tractor, if they came over and did it, because they have all this stuff to make it would be best. And I'm like, damn, she's right. Okay, cool. Now finally yesterday, right? We got it all in and it looks amazing. But if I were to just sit there and think, yeah, I can just visualize it and yeah, it'll just be good enough. Like that's not how you actually build something of real value.
Well, let me say on that point, because this is fucking awesome. And also congratulations on the place. It's actually amazing.
Hey, real quick, here's what I was going to say. Here's what we need to get next, Mitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kubota.
Double. Oh, it's got the front and the back. Fucking
When
sick.
you own land, suddenly you're like, stuff like this is like, I want that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would have never given a shit about that before, but now it's like, okay. It's like the other day I'm like realizing, I need to get some dirt delivered to put around the chicken run, and I can put some over here to flatten it out because it's collecting water and it rains. I'm like, oh, but if I had a tractor, I could fucking move the dirt around. I'm like, okay, I want a fucking tractor now.
Isn't it funny? It's like all those images of like, oh, I had the Lamborghini and the Ferrari and the house in the Hollywood Hills, and like, I mean, I want a nice truck. I'm down to have a nice car. Yeah, I want that shit.
So I was at the very beginning of what you were sharing, Mitch. You were talking about how you're literally moving yourself all day, and it's the most fulfilling thing. And I was just looking at that point of like, okay, to support people to understand why is that particularly fulfilling? The movement, what that brings to your body, you're actually doing something. You get to see the result of your work, but also a part of that is you're specifically not thinking. Thinking is what drains you and fucks you over. And let me be more specific. Okay, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and he was telling me all of his problems in a relationship, all of his problems with business. He's trying to, KT, and he really loves it and all that stuff, but he just keeps falling back into his bad habits. His parents are pulling him down, all this stuff, right? And so then I start sharing a little bit about what we do, right? And he's like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And then I'm like, so just real quick, like, what happens if you don't change? Like, what is it that you're trying to get away from? He's like, I don't want to focus on the negative. I was like, okay, I hear you 100%. But for the last, like, I gave him some context of like, it's important to look at both sides. So you can look at everything. Don't avoid anything because that's inside of you. Right. But I don't know. He's like, okay, that makes sense. But also, I don't know if you realize, but for the last 30, 40 minutes, you were only talking about the negative.
Yeah. You were just complaining.
And then
when I ask you to be honest about it, suddenly you don't want to talk about it.
So this is really important.
Hilarious.
This is really important. This is why the gin symbol Relationships is what keeps it all together. You have the books, the audios, the events, giving and receiving recognition, but without the oval around it that keeps it all together, all of that falls away. It floats off into, because no one's going to hold you accountable. No one's going to reflect back to you what you need to hear, be that point of self-honesty. That's why we have this group. So we all do that. When all of us were just focused on thinking positively and we were only in gin with our low vocabulary, I guarantee you that 90% of the time when we weren't directing our thoughts to be like, okay, I'm going to sit down and do my visualization, we were thinking a bunch of random bullshit and we weren't taking it apart. We weren't taking responsibility for it. We weren't questioning why, where's their self-doubt, all that stuff. Because we thought, don't focus on the doubt, don't focus on the lack, don't focus on any of that stuff. Okay, I'm going to take out my dream book. I'm going to look at my visualization board. I'm going to look at all that stuff and think positively, right? All the other time, we don't realize how draining thinking is. But it's like, if you really look at the creation of thinking and why, it's like, there's different forms of thinking, right? Like when Cameron and Mitch were both talking about planning, like, okay, where are we going to put this garden? Okay, that would look good there. Okay, cool. That would make sense, right? It's like, yeah, it requires thinking, but there's different forms of thinking. And part of it is, for example, if Mitch ran into the challenge of like the shovel thing wasn't working, right? And you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And then thinking about it. But no, Mitch has willpower, right? He always had some willpower. So he goes and he talks to the neighbor and they say, hey, we have one in the back, but we don't know if it works. Okay, I can figure it out. Let's do it. I'm a technical guy. I'll figure it out. You work on it for an hour and you thought you were going to have the fucking garden done by now. You barely even started, right? Or like you're halfway through, right? You work on it for an hour. It doesn't work. And then you're just like, fuck this. Like, man, I'm just going to go and do other stuff. And then in the end of the night, I'm going to lay in my bed and just be like, fuck. You could have done that. And that's what we do. We go positive, negative. And then you're in a rut for 3 days, a week, a month, however long. Maybe for that specific example, you wake up the next day, you find something else. But the point is, like, people don't even get to that point. Right. Like people don't get to the point of asking their neighbor. Think about that. It's like, think about, we all work with people. When it's time to go talk to somebody, it's like, oh, I have to go talk to somebody.
This part where it's like, okay, I'm gonna stop and like just let go and let the universe time it and all this stuff, right? Time it. Okay, let's just look at it practically. Why does that happen? Like, why does somebody go, I'm focusing on it and it's not feeling right, and now I'm just going to let it go for a moment. Like, why do they do that?
Well, and are you saying they let it go for a moment, realizing they're going to catch back up, or they're saying, I'm going to let it go indefinitely?
No, kind of like it becomes like an excuse of like, it's the universe. I'm still resisting. The universe isn't letting it in. I'm not letting it in. It becomes that. But like, why do they get to that point?
It's just straight up lack of vocabulary.
Right. Meaning they don't know how at that point.
Right. Exactly.
Just like in your example, you didn't know initially how to get that land. You were first thinking a shovel and water. Then you're like, I need a tiller. And then you're like, okay, I don't need that kind of tiller. I need this kind of tiller.
I don't even know why you brought the fucking bucket of water out. I would have stopped before that. You know what I mean? That's the limitation of my understanding in that context.
So it's because they don't know the how. That's always the problem. That's why Kevin says, okay, go back and focus on your why. Because to a certain degree, it makes sense to do that because you're like, okay, I don't know how to do this, but why do I want it? Okay, because I want the garden because of X, Y, Z. Okay, I do want this. Okay, now, all right, I'm clear. I do want this. So, okay, what do I need? What is the issue that I need to figure out next? It's like when you get demotivated because it's frustrating and so forth, right? But the actual solution is build your vocabulary. Because if you didn't know about the different tillers, you'd be stuck. You didn't know if you didn't know how to communicate with the neighbor or this or that, or you had self-doubt or you had fear and so forth. So your first 7 years, if all of those points weren't put in there, you would be stuck. Or if you don't have Technotutor. So now you can do is you can change that. You can build that vocabulary. So in other words, all the things that we're being critical about in terms of the law of attraction. So the problem is not law of attraction. The problem is the person's vocabulary level. And that's why people make excuses, because they're always going back to the point of like, well, the universe will just provide it when it's time and so forth. And it's like, no, just admit you don't know how. Now figure out the vocabulary that you need. And here's the tool to actually integrate it. So you really, it's like you're operating within that new vocabulary rather than just, okay, I see all these words here, but it's like not coming from me. Like imagine being the gardener, not just studying, memorizing about gardening, but actually becoming the gardener. The gardener has the vocabulary within them. It comes out and they operate as if it's who they are. And that's the difference with the vocabulary that you develop with TechnoTutor versus why most people don't end up creating very much, because they aren't able to develop that point of natural learning ability. And yes, there are some people whose natural learning ability remains a little bit more open than most. So it looks like there's these exceptional people. But when you look at what they could be, they're not really that exceptional. They're just a little bit more than the average person, which is not saying much.
Good point.
So it's just like a comparative point.
I think that's the problem or the challenge with why people are not so teachable, because, and I'm sure we talked about this before, but like the people who are like, because it's two elements, right? People who are willing to learn and willing to accept change, right? But it's like the people who are willing to learn, like they want to learn something, like Asif was mentioning before, you know, you've got those people who, or maybe Mitch was saying this, you got these people who they have what they want at this level. They don't need much, or they don't feel like they need much more. They don't want to change. They're happy, so to speak, right? And so they're not really willing to change in the first place. They're not open to being teachable. And then you've got the people who they don't have what they want and they want to change, but then they don't have the vocabulary for it. And so they are also not teachable, because part of teachability is your willingness to learn, which means your ability to learn, your preparedness to learn. Like,
and willingness is not just an emotional thing.
Right.
Like Drake walked this through. I don't know if it was on a podcast. I think it was during a self-perfected hangout, but the word willingness,
Right.
it's like, it's more so about ability. It's like, are you actually physically open to learning?
Like I will do something means I can do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I know how to do it. I mean, at the point where you're actually doing it. So you can't say I will do that and you don't know how and you can't.
Right.
That's
So
not
you can't learn.
will.
Right.
Doesn't matter how much you want.
Right. Right. And
Yeah, it's not exactly. It's not want, it's will. It's a totally different point.
Right. Right. And so that's the interesting thing about that is like, how many people are actually even looking at just that basic point right there? You've not even looked into, you know, what does it mean to be willing?
You know, also people,
So
you know, I was thinking how people take teachability as it's connected to their self-esteem somehow.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm teachable. No, I'm teachable. It's like, how do you know you're teachable?
Yeah.
It's like, are you teachable? Yeah, I'm teachable.
I'm the most teachable.
Really? So if I gave you a quantum physics book, you could learn it today?
Well, I mean,
Are you teachable? It's
I'm
like,
teachable.
Oh, my teachability just dropped down to like a full.
it just changed. It's like, no, it was always that way. Like you don't have the vocabulary. So your teachability, it's like if I say you're low teachability, it doesn't mean that I'm saying you're
stubborn.
I'm not
That's what
making
people
a
think. That's what
you're stubborn, or
Right.
I'm not making a judgment on you as a person or as a being, or saying something bad about you. I'm just saying you don't have what it takes to learn this. You're not teachable, right? Someone's knocking on my door.
Yeah, you go check that out.
Go for it.
Go ahead, biggest dickus.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that point of teachability is actually fascinating, because I mean, I'm going to make a bold statement here, but this is why you can't listen to people who didn't have to change to become successful. If people were already programmed to become successful, they're reflecting back to see, you know, what was it that made me successful? It's like, oh, I was teachable. I was really open to learning. I can see that that's the difference between me and other people. And so unless you guys had pointed it out right now, I wouldn't have actually looked at. So I knew this. I explained this to people. I'm like, you can become more teachable physically, practically by using TechnoTutor because it'll reopen your natural learning ability. And willingness to learn is the same thing as willingness to change. Because if you said your kid learned how to walk and they didn't change themselves to actually be able to walk, you would say that child did not learn how to walk. Learning and changing is the same thing.
But I think, okay, but you're right. That's a really great point. But I think, like, looking at it practically, willingness to change, right, is, do you want to change in this moment? Right? That's the, like, the desire point, right? Of,
But if you have the understanding of the points that are going to change, you will want to.
yeah,
Meaning, because again, it's like you can't just want to change. You can,
Right.
you can, but that in itself is not the same thing as willingness to change. Like, willingness means you want to, and you know what to change, and you're able to do it. Like, you have access to the tools to do it.
yeah,
What happens, it's like, in other words, you have access to your natural learning ability in that moment. What happens is most people only get access to their natural learning ability in moments of extreme stress and tragedy.
Right.
And it's like that moment where it's like there's like a fire burning inside of you and it's burning up all the old patterns, and you're like, in that moment, you're making that new decision of, okay, I'm gonna go with this now. But it's like, that's not systematic.
That's why you hear so many people who have like a near-death experience and then they change their life.
Yeah.
It's like, is that what you want to have to go through in order to change?
And they don't even change in the best way, but
Exactly.
they do make a shift from one life to another life.
Why is that when the energy is so strong, it gives someone that ability to change? Is it just there's literally
What are
that
we
much
programmed
energy
for?
going through the body?
What are we programmed for?
survival.
Survival. It's only when you're going to drop below your survival, you cannot survive, that you will do whatever it takes. For,
It's things that are high impact.
Interesting.
High impact, because now what's interesting about TechnoTutor is it's not, without going into too much detail on this, but it's not high impact in a physical sense. What's cool about it is it's not recreating that experience.
right.
And I remember
TechnoTutor every day, it's like we're almost dying.
yeah, no, it's like
I wonder if that would work. You just get your partner to choke you every day until you say what you want. Like, yes, I want to be successful. I want to be successful until you're about to die.
I will find a tiller.
Go test it out.
Exactly.
That's why I have the $13,000 chicken.
Okay.
But you won't be able to find a partner if you don't have a high vocabulary.
Why do you think all these elite people do all this weird ritualistic shit?
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. They're raising the energy level to a point where they can shift things to another level. Now, that is not necessary as an individual. And see, the problem is, to do it that way, you have to sacrifice other people. You have to hurt other people. You have to abuse yourself to do it. And what we're talking about is a non-self-abusive way to change. It is the slower way, though. But the slow way, the long way, is the short way, meaning it's sustainable. It's like, if you wanted to build that garden, you could have just
wait, let me give you
some dynamite to it.
Dynamite, yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you could do something that's like, okay, you're going to get it today. It's like McDonald's. You can go and get food right now, or you can build a garden and have organic food, and you can eat balanced and so forth, right? And you're not putting all this salt and sugar and preservatives and shit in your body. The long term is going to be much better and real versus what you're going to get if you do it the quick way.
I had in 2016, when I moved to Toronto, I had a roommate, and he was working at some company, and he was really frustrated with his job. And this is what I'm referring to is Cameron saying you can change with the energy way, but so TechnoTutor is the slow way, but the slow way is the only way. It's the only way. I don't want to say it's like the short way. It's the only way, because this guy that I'm talking about, his name is Eric, and super nice guy, Irish guy, who moved to Canada, all this stuff. And he was working in a situation he didn't like with an old girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And he got into a motorcycle.
Was she like 70 or something?
No. but he got into a motorcycle accident. He almost died.
Motorcycle?
Sorry, motor. Drake's gonna excuse himself. So he got into
Jake's
a motorcycle.
messaging us that he has to pee, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. But he says gotta pee already. So he got into a motorcycle accident and he almost died. And he was like, oh my fuck. Why am I in this situation? I started questioning everything. I was like, man, life is short. I'm not gonna work in some shitty place that I don't like. But he just got another job and got another girlfriend and he's still not happy.
It's like he missed the whole fucking point.
Because think about the
It's like he used it to change that one thing.
But think about it. It's like why did he do that in the first place? Is because his understanding about what would make him happy and what he's able to do led him there. When you get into a big energetic experience, you don't get smarter.
Right.
This is what people don't understand with tapping and spiritual reconnective healing and best treatments. You don't then learn how to invest your money. You don't then learn how to communicate with people. You're
still at the same level you were at before. You might just let go of 1 or 2 points. Mm-hmm. It might change a little bit here, but that's why we're saying the slow way, the long way, whatever you want to call it. You have to step by step change all the points. And then at the end of that, the culmination of that is you can do something you couldn't do before.
So this is a great example of what Cameron's saying right now of there are so many points that you have to change about yourself right now that you thinking that, oh, I just got to get, so I was talking to somebody, it was like 2 weeks ago. It was a young guy, really aggressive go-getter, really intense. And he was like, yeah, like I want to change. Like I'm like, what's your
I want to change.
He really wanted to change, right? And I'm like, what's your teachability? And he's like, I'm 10 for 10. I'm like, don't tell me that if you're not serious about it, because I'll actually show you what you need to do, and you're not going to do it, and you're going to feel like shit for not doing it. You're lying, right? But then he's like, no, 10 for 10. And I'm like, okay, you wanting to fuck 100 women and have a family doesn't line up. And he's like, why can't I have it all? And I'm like, what's your teachability right now? And Mitchell, yes, it was that person. Exactly.
That's funny. I had a conversation with the same guy.
But, and so here's what I want to say. It's like, he's like, okay, then I'm like, dude, all of your thinking is wrong. All of it. Like 95% of it. He's like, okay, then tell me 5, like, tell me one thing. I'm like, I'll tell you 5 things.
I'll give you 5.
And then I listed like 15, right? And well, then how
under promise, over deliver. Yeah.
Exactly. I learned that from Jin. So a great example of this, to give it a more practical example so I can talk about it very openly, is Mitchell. And I'm sure you guys have experienced people like this of there's so many things wrong with what they're saying. So I need some advice about how to make money, because I'm trying to make money so that I can feel good, so that you know I can have a yacht and all this. You're like, well, wait, your dreams are fucked up. Like, you don't even understand why you want what you want. You just accepted that from somebody else. I can't teach you how to make money. Right? I can't just tell you, hey, go for Mitchell. It was like when Mitchell was super teachable, he was using tech to do all that stuff. He's like, okay, what do I have to do? We're just like, change your goal. He changes his goal. Like, okay, now remove the emotion that you feel when you look at the business, the money coming from the business. He did it. Problem fucking solved, because he was using TechnoTutor for like months and looking at himself. But at the Jin event, the storm that was going on inside of Mitchell was fucking hilarious. And the result of that, what I'm talking about, is Avery just being like, dude, you have no idea what you're saying. Just get TechnoTutor. Mm-hmm. Because there was so many things that were off. You're like, but I thought source energy was the thing that, this is what we all went through, right? It's like, I thought source energy, right? So that's why you're not making money. You're like, what? How does that relate to me making money? You're like, I know you can't see that right now. That's why you need TechnoTutor. Because if you can't connect the dots between abdicating responsibility and hoping that something else will figure it out for you, and you're not looking at the practical step by step, right? There's 1,000 things wrong. And I made this point. Drake was on the TechnoTutor, like a client support call that me and Kian have every week.
I slide in there every other week.
Yeah, Drake will just come in because he has the Zoom meeting ID, and I see him and I'm like, fuck it, whatever. But Drake, eventually you're gonna have to buy Technotutor from me, dude. I was talking to Christine, right? And I was asking her about like some health related stuff and about poops. And so at the end of it, I was like, okay, so like how much does this cost me? She started laughing. I was like, do I have to buy Technotutor from you now? She started laughing. But
you have to buy Technotutor from me every time you talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. So on that support call, fuck, what was I talking about? I got carried away with the poops and the
You're talking about me and then the other guy who was trying to be teachable. Everything was messed up. Then you're on your support call.
Drake, it was one thing that I said. Oh my God.
On the support call?
Yeah. And you were like, oh, okay. I got it.
Okay.
So I think it's in, thanks, Drake. I think it's in level 5. But one of the higher level trainings, Kevin Trudeau talks about, it's not one thing. Everyone's looking for the one final key that if they understood it, it's all going to work. It's 1,000 little things. The reason why KT says perfect practice makes perfect is because he's telling you, you practice the wrong fucking thing your whole life.
Dude, level 5 is where it starts to get real, man.
Yeah. Level 4, level 5. And so what he's saying is, hey, yes, it's about learning the new things and going from conscious competence to unconscious competence. But there's another dynamic, which is going from all the bullshit that you're unconsciously competent in, taking it back down to conscious competence, changing it, and then putting it into your unconscious competence. There is 1,000 little things that you're doing wrong. And that's what's resulting in all of the turmoil. That's why this is a daily process. But what the example I was giving in the context of vocabulary, it's like the reason why it's so important that it's a consistent daily habit. Well, there's the fundamental point where we are life, we are human beings, we are nature, and the way nature moves is in a very step-by-step format, right? If you look closely at a tree, if you just stare at a tree, it'll grow so slowly that you can't tell that it's changing. But it's changing. But if you look at it from week 1 to week 3, you'll be like, oh, it's made growth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a human being can grow much faster than a tree, but symbolically, it's the same point, right? Imagine each word in your vocabulary, in your brain. Okay. Let's say,
But that's where I keep my vocabulary.
but so it is part of your body, but let's just say in your brain for simplicity. Imagine a 1% inefficiency in the way that you're processing a word over 1,000 words. Just a 1% inefficiency. And for everybody, there's words where you have a fucking 10,000% inefficiency because you have the wrong definition. Like the word willingness. It's like you're totally fucked if you can't process
Or the
that.
word energy.
Or
Right,
consciousness.
Or
Source,
frequency.
consciousness.
Energy. Oh, you already said that.
Drake, what did you say?
Frequency.
Frequency, right.
Vibration.
Right. I remember all of these are fucked inside of all of us. We worked through it, right? I remember when Cameron was talking about frequency for the first time as the amount of times that you do something. I'm like, no.
They're like, no.
No, that requires me to do something over and over again.
No.
My point with that is that's like a 10,000% inefficiency. It's like you're working in the opposite direction. So correct that, that'll fix a lot. But if you just look at the basics of it, a 1% inefficiency over 1,000 words. Whew, birdie. Your processing ability, your ability to go, that's why we call it a direct access memory. For those of you who've seen the presentation or heard more specifically about Technotutor, it's a direct access memory.
You know what's cool about the word frequency, right? Like how KT uses it in Your Wish is Your Command when he's talking about the law of attraction, right? When you have a thought, right, the neurons within your brain fire at a certain frequency, right? And the frequency with which they fire determines the intensity. We talked about this on a previous podcast, right? So, okay, if you're just thinking about something, right, these neurons are firing. But if you're actually doing something, and then if it's something that's automatic within you, they fire automatically without you having to think about it. There is an increased frequency. You're matching the frequency of whatever it is that you want. Like technically speaking, you are matching the frequency of what you want, but it's by doing the actual thing. That's what's matching the frequency.
That's
Are you
so
following
good.
that?
Yeah, that's so. It's like, okay, what is the number of times that you would have to go to the gym in order to lose 2 pounds? If you match that frequency of the number of times that you go to the gym, you'll lose 2 pounds.
Yeah.
You have to match the right frequency, because if you wanted to lose 15 pounds, you want to get shredded, you're going to have a much higher frequency.
Yeah.
A much higher frequency.
Yeah.
I'm talking love and bliss frequency. You know what I mean? That's how people think about it, right? It's like, oh, you change the frequency and that changes the energy and all this stuff. But I remember giving the example to somebody at a gym event we were rooming with, and then he bought Technicator after this. But I was like, you think that you're not judgmental and you're trying to move up the frequency hierarchy, but you're judging love as better than contentment or whatever on the frequency hierarchy. But let me ask you something. You have radio stations, right? What are some radio station frequencies that come off the top of your head? And they were like, 100.3. There's also 89.9.
Oh,
right. Not so good for Canada, but they're different where you are locally. But the point is, I'm like, okay, what do you like both of those? Or like, is that why you mentioned them? He's like, yeah, I like both of them. I'm like, do you like 100.3 because it's a higher frequency? He's like, and I actually like the 89.9. I'm like, cool. And it's not going to work out perfectly like that. But the point is, the frequency is fucking irrelevant. Take that spectrum that you're looking at frequency, instead of seeing it as a vertical frequency, just turn it sideways and you're just changing between frequencies. They're all equal. Doesn't matter. Just what do you want? Okay, well, you want to be happy. Okay, if you can't pay rent, you're not going to be happy. So don't focus on trying to up your feelings. Focus on creating a situation for yourself that is the conditions of happiness. For example,
what does that mean, being happy?
Well, there's a key here. That frequency also has to be aligned with everything so that it's best for all, right? Because if your frequency is, oh, I'm happy because I can pay rent and shit like that,
right?
Guess what? If that's not to the same tune of everybody having their needs met, you're still fucked.
As in, you need to get your survival set first, and then you'll be able to focus on more and more and more and more and more. From the perspective of Cameron didn't have the quote unquote internal and external freedom to focus on building a chicken coop 8 years ago. And finances, space, all that stuff, that's all financial, but also just within yourself, you're just way too fucked up.
Yeah. I would have just gotten stressed at the first sign of something not being what I understood how to do and just given up and be like,
Right.
fuck this or whatever.
So when I say happiness, I'm Cameron, glad you brought up that point, and I'll let you talk about that. But I'm just using that in the context of like what that person was thinking.
Yeah.
But
I just wanted to go into that a little bit with you guys. Like when people say like, what's the purpose of their life? It's like, I just want to be happy. And it's like, what does that actually mean?
You know what's interesting? Peter Ragnar, you know how he's always talking about like, well, I guess I don't know what he's always talking about, but he's perceived as this guy who's like just very lucky, in tune with nature, all that shit, right? Yeah. He made a post this past week of like, I'm not trying to be happy. Like, I've noticed that the moments where I am happiest is when I'm not looking for happiness.
Right.
I'm just living my life. I'm doing the things that need to be done. And the moment I'm like, oh, this is happiness, and I want to try to keep this, that's when it goes.
Right.
You know?
It's like I saw a deer on the property yesterday out the window, and I was like, oh, cool, a deer. And then I went outside to go look at it, and then it ran away.
Probably because it saw your face.
Probably smelled me. Right. But you see my point though? It's like the moment I'm like, oh, I want to hold on to that. I want to find it. Then it's gone. And I'm not saying happiness has to be that way where you can't have it permanently, but what is happiness?
It's just
Like, is it just a feeling?
It's
And is it a problem if we define it that way?
I think happiness
Yeah.
is really just like the appreciation of this moment, which is fine, right? But then you still have to go and create more. moments.
How long can you sit and appreciate one moment
Yeah.
before it's like something's going to change about that moment?
Yeah.
Or you can't like if everything is perfect. That's static. Perfect meaning everything is the way you want it. That's giving you happiness in that moment. It would have to remain static, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And then
Like-
you get bored.
And like nothing can change within it, or something will be disruptive. And so you have this it's like this imagination of like this, I'm just sitting in a forest and there's birds fluttering and stuff. And it's like, but what if it rains? Well, I will still be happy. I will appreciate. What if it fucking thunderstorms on your ass?
Yeah. What if there's a?
Are you just gonna sit
vicious
there and it's just
animal?
pouring down rain and then it's a hurricane and you're just still sitting there and like,
What if a bird shits on your face?
right? Like it doesn't mean you have to suddenly become depressed, but what is actual happiness? And it's funny because if you ask 100 different people, aren't they all going to give you kind of the same vague answer, but then very different specific answers?
Yeah, happiness to me is being able to own my own flower shop or had my own wood lathe or
But why do you want the flower shop?
So that you can feel this emotion.
But what is that feeling that people are like? If you think about it, isn't it so
This sensation.
immature for us to be so focused and overly obsessive on just obtaining a feeling inside of ourselves
Yeah, for sure.
and not considering the physical reality required and all the consequences of that for that feeling to happen? When the way I'm seeing it is like real happiness is when you have everything you need. And you say, well, what about things that I want? I mean, if you don't need it, why would you want it? Like you guys need a tiller, right?
Mm-hmm.
For that garden that you want,
Mm-hmm.
that you need for the things that you want, which are things that you need. Because you're aligning what you want with what you actually need. So want and need is something that you actually require, and want means you lack it. So it's like if I want something, that's just telling you don't have it. Like that doesn't explain why you should have it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not really a difference between needs and wants.
That's
A
a
want is
great-
just something you
that's
don't
great.
have.
It's really good.
That's a great
Does that make
question,
sense?
man. Yeah.
So it's like, well, but I have things I want beyond what I need. Well, then why do you want them?
right.
It's like, well, I don't have a Ferrari, but I don't need a Ferrari. Then why do you want it? Because perhaps you could come up with a practical, real reason you need it. Like, for example, if you're building a business, and from my perspective, if it's aligned with what's best for all, and the result of your business is the world is going to be supported in an effective way, and as a part of that, you have a Ferrari, which attracts people to your business, which allows you to then take things further and help people more, then you need it.
Can I play the part of the guy who's like, but I really want that, but I don't need it. Like,
Well, yeah, but
if I really
but there's
want,
no self-honesty in that statement. You see what I mean? It's like I just want it.
Yeah.
Well,
What's the
And this
example?
is
I
going
desire
back to
like it would make me feel good.
desire is the same side is the same thing as fear.
Mm,
Oh shit, dude.
why is that?
Guys, we're hitting our stride. It's that time in the podcast.
For example, right? What time is it? Oh, we're still good.
It's game time.
For example,
That was such a Mitchell statement. I love it.
just to be clear, you did say, just be clear, because I don't want to get my hopes up. You did say gay time, right?
No game time. Is gay time something you want or need, Cam? Or is it a desire?
Where's the self-honesty, Cam? Come
Here we
on.
go. Here we go.
Show us those Crocs again. Come on.
Does it make you happy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I happy? Fear.
You said desire is fear. It's
Like,
the same
let's
as
just think of something. What is something that every guy desires?
sleeps with a bunch of women. A lot
It's
of guys
like
desire that.
so easy to identify that.
Yeah.
But
Literally.
where does that desire stem from?
Not having one woman to sleep with, or not fearing a committed relationship and fearing that you're missing out on all these other women.
That's it. It's
And
like
also like
this
low
fear. There's a
self-esteem.
fear of right? Low self-esteem. And I think I can see for me, that was the main point. I don't know if that's for everybody, but I really think it probably is it stems from this point of like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking loser, but if I can fuck a bunch of hot women, I'm a champion.
Yeah.
So you think that activity is like it's like having a Rolex. Like you think that means you're something.
Yeah.
Right. So then you have guys chasing that instead of building the things that would get them that. Of course, by the time you build something, you realize you don't want it anyways. Because to build that stuff, you actually have to have a stable partner.
What are you thinking, Drake? What are
No,
you
that's so fucking clear. That's so clear. Like, okay, you want something you don't need because you're not willing to face your fears, and you think that this is the way that you can
avoid facing your fears, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So like you've got this low self-esteem. You don't want to admit you have low self-esteem, or maybe you do. Maybe you're like, no, I have low self-esteem. This is what's going to solve that for me. So it's like it's a more emotional need, or like internal. That's what you're thinking, right?
This is genius.
This is such a great breakdown, Biggest Dickus. Could you continue?
People on whoever might watch the podcast, Cameron changed his name to Biggest Dickus. So
He legally changed his name, Biggest Dickus.
It
like,
was Trail Boss, and then what was the other one? Bird Dog. Now it's Biggest Dickus.
And you can't see when you're watching the podcast, they can't see our names, right?
No,
Fortunately.
So.
Yeah. So there's so many points in there.
So you're talking about that point of desire in the context of
it's actually fear.
When someone's not willing to look at why they want what they want, it's because they're not willing to look at the fear within it.
Yeah, but I really want to, like, that seems all pretty obvious now.
But I mean, the problem with that is it's not actually going to fix the thing. It's like you want.
But at the end of the day, what they're trying to get is happiness.
Yes. Yeah.
So all of this is coming from trying to feel complete, happy, content, right? And
is it really happiness that they're trying to get, or is it just relief from the pain that they feel?
See, but all of that is. Yeah, go ahead.
That's what's defined as happiness, but
all of that is rolled up into happiness.
Okay.
This is what we're talking about.
That's why I'm saying it's vague, and everyone agrees on the vague aspect, but then there's the specifics, and it's kind of different to each person. Yeah.
In terms of creating the conditions that bring forth happiness, is what Drake just said is like, yeah, they're not actually trying to quote unquote be happy. They're trying to fix the fear by doing this. And they're calling it happiness. But my point within that is, unless you directly change the fear, for example, you have low self-esteem. Why? Because you weren't educated on how to get what you want out of life. And because of that, you constantly don't get what you want out of life because you don't know how to communicate with people. You don't know how to learn. You give into failure and mistakes and all that stuff, and you fall and all that stuff. So that makes you unhappy. But if you solve the reason for the fear, if you solve the underlying points that are causing you to have that anxiety or the angst or the nervousness or all that stuff, and you do that for everybody, that will set the conditions for you to feel happy. Because the happiness that you're actually looking for is not some artificial thing that you can create it within yourself, independent of what is happening in your life. But the word that goes with the definition of the happiness that you feel as a result of what you've created in your life, it's called fulfillment. And the only way you can be fulfilled is when you create something in reality. And this is why Cameron was really specific in his words when he said real happiness. He said that earlier. He said real happiness. As in the thing, and it's when you have all your needs met, everything that you need, you have it. Real happiness being happiness if you were to project that into reality rather than just keeping it as this thing in your mind. Just like we talk about real love. If you take the concept of love and put it into reality within the confines of space and time and action and relationships and all that stuff, it's giving, right? Real happiness, if you take it into reality beyond your mind, it's having all of your needs met. And then the higher levels of happiness, if you will, is giving to other people, actually focusing on, why am I here? And paying attention to all those points of, the reason life isn't working for me is because it's not working for anybody. And so in the context of trying to focus on a point of, I'm just really, really glad you brought up the parallel between want and need being the same thing, but it is, I guess, how is it seen differently? Because need usually has a negative context, as in,
But need is a necessity.
Need is
Right.
like something that you can justify based on reasoning,
right.
and want is something you can't. And so it's like there's an irrational emotional component to it
That's so crazy.
in
That's-
terms of how we use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, in reality, if you look at the definitions and you look at, because obviously the thing is, a word can have multiple definitions. That doesn't mean every definition applies at all times.
Right.
So just because a word says, like if you look, would one of you look up the word, the definition of the word want?
Mitchell seems like he's on it.
I'm on it.
Game time.
I want this definition.
Stay time.
Okay, verb. I'll do the verbs and the nouns. There's 4 total.
Do the
verb
nouns,
one.
do the nouns, do the nouns.
The nouns, okay. Noun 1, a lack or deficiency of something.
Okay. So
Yeah.
for want of something, or he has wants, that's a context that we use that word in. So just because I'm using the word want doesn't mean something is negative. It depends on the context of the, go ahead, continue with the.
Oh, then there's second one is a desire for something.
Right? So you can have a desire for something, or you can have something that's like a deficiency. And what were the verbs?
Verb 1, have a desire to possess or do something or wish for. Or 2, ought, should, or need to do something.
Ought, should, or need to do something.
Yeah, it's an informal way of using it.
Does it have an example?
You don't want to believe everything you hear.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Like I don't want to do it. Okay. See, the problem is if somebody says like, oh, I want this, and then they're like, oh, you shouldn't say want, because you should say, I ask for it. Because if you say want, you're meaning that you don't have it. And it's like, well, then why the fuck are you asking for it? Yeah, it's like, oh, well, if I use that word, it's going to create the thing. It's like, but you're already in that state. Like using the word want or ask isn't going to fucking change anything. If it's not going to change anything if you're afraid of the word itself is going to do something to you.
Yeah.
You clarify
It's
the
just
definition
going
within
self-
yourself,
self-doubt.
right? So if the problem is not the word want versus ask, it's the emotion that you're experiencing and that's within you towards that thing that you don't have. Like if you want something, why should it be emotional? If you need something, why should it be emotional? Hey, I need you to go grab that thing for me.
But
Oh.
Cameron,
Oh, are you okay?
I,
You have a
I,
need for me to grab that for you? Are you all right? It's like, you just grab it for me.
I thought I'm supposed
You know
to
what I'm saying?
create a movie scene in my mind of everything I want and really fill it with emotional attachment and emotional desire. Isn't that
It's like,
how I get what I want?
it's like your waiter comes over, you're like, what would you like? Like, oh, I want an extra large cheeseburger. And you're like, oh, fuck, sorry. I mean, I asked for it. It's like, they're going to give you the cheeseburger. So in terms of now the context of people talking about their dreams and so forth, they're saying I need something versus I want something. And what I'm saying is happiness is when you get all your needs. And the problem is the conflict that comes up in a person is they go, but how can I be happy if I don't have all the things I want? You see, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't be happy. That can't be happiness. It's just I have what I need, because what about the things I want? I'm like, well, why do you want those things? Are they needs or not? And if they're not needs, what is the definition of need?
Need
Patrick,
verb requires something because it is essential or very important. 2, expressing necessity or obligation.
Necessity.
Or the noun, circumstances in which something is necessary or that require some course of action, necessity. Or the other noun, a thing that is wanted or required.
Okay. So that first point that said, because it's very important. It's like, can you explain why it's very important to you? Because if it's very significantly important to you, then yeah, that makes sense. But by definition, making something emotional is when you can't come up with the reasons for it.
But
By definition.
It's because that want, and that should be an indicator that that thing you want is not coming from you.
Because you can't come up with the reasons for it.
But
You
this is
don't know
where-
the reasons. You just want it because you want it because you want it because you feel like you want it. And it's like that was
Right.
that was in some way embedded, implanted within you.
Right.
It's not coming from actually you. That's why we were talking about on the other call.
This
The your thinking is not your own. Like Avery was saying, don't trust your thinking. Right. And this is going back to what we were talking earlier. As a point I wanted to make in there, we were talking about the different types of thinking. And I really look at it as there's two types of thinking. There's the thinking where you're planning, and that is practical. Because, we say like, stop thinking, but like, well, I have to think. Well, thinking as planning is one thing, but that's coming from you. Like you're sitting there, you're directing it, you're trying to figure something out versus somebody cuts you off in traffic and you're like, this fucking asshole. I bet this motherfucker doesn't even know how to drive. Like this bitch, like all these things start coming up inside of you. That's not that type of thinking. That's this other kind that's just coming up. It's a program. It's something you heard your parents do it or somebody else do it, and it's just coming up. And there's a billion fucking different things like that inside of you where things come up just because someone else in your environment, TV, whatever, advertising, teachers, whatever, put that little program in you because they did it. You copied that behavior through your natural learning ability, and now it's just coming up within you. It's the same thing. All the subconscious, unconscious fears you have towards building a business, getting into relationships. It's the reason guys want to fuck a bunch of women. All these different points, it's like a program put into you. That's not real thinking. So when we were talking about thinking being draining, thinking about planning stuff does also require energy, but it's not the same kind of draining type of energy suck as the ineffective thinking.
And I
or
want to
the programmed thinking.
When you're talking about I think we were talking about the context of disease and why we get sick and all that stuff. You repeatedly brought up this point of how it's because your thoughts are programmed so poorly. And this is one of the examples of it. It's like, if that information exists inside of you of fuck that person, fuck that person, fuck that person, fuck that bitch, whatever. These things are
how can your body be functioning effectively?
Right. It's like that information is in your body.
I was just thinking about this too, because like I'm watching all this stuff online. Well, not watching it. I'm seeing videos that are being posted right on YouTube on my It's funny. I get my news from my YouTube feed, even though I don't watch the videos. It's like I can see the headline.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Doesn't mean I trust the headline. I understand sometimes it's clickbait, but I'm just saying I get like a feel for what's going on, right? But my point is, I've been noticing like Tim Pool and some others have been talking about, war with China, right? And I'm like, there's a bunch of points you can go into there, but the basic point I want to make is, how is it 2021? And we just went through this whole point where everyone's talking about, our heroes and helping everybody and wearing a mask because you care and everyone uniting around the world to end the pandemic. And then we're also going to go to war with each other. Like, hold on. The World Health Organization has China involved, has the US, Russia, or whoever, all these, and we're working together to solve the pandemic. But then also we're going to go to war over some like island or something. It's like, what? So how are we actually working together? What's really going on here? How are we literally at this maturity level that in today's day and age where we care about inclusivity and diversity and people from I want the cognitive dissonance that's going to fucking happen for people when we do inevitably, apparently, go to war with China. is going to be crazy, where they're like, include everybody, all races are equal, all people, all types, but then we're going to go to war with a country, which is like, how do you reconcile that within yourself of like, you can't misgender somebody because you might hurt their feelings, but then we're going to go to war, and because people right now, they're gonna be like, oh, we won't do that. But when it happens, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be like, well, you have to do it. And they're gonna be on the bandwagon, cheering it on, just like they cheered on everything else. They're gonna be the ones doing it. And that cognitive dissonance is gonna make people crack. Because you can't not be aware of the fact that it doesn't make sense. So I'm just looking at the point of how it's the same level of immaturity that we have of focusing on feelings as the most important thing that exists. So how can you have a body that's effectively functioning when you're in yourself communicating about other people in this way? And I mean, I see those points within myself.
Yeah.
Where somebody does something or doesn't do something, and then I start back chatting about it in my mind, and like I'm thinking about it and dwelling on it, and I didn't do anything productive with that time. All I did was just think about that person.
Yeah.
How was I a creator in that moment? I wasn't. I was just following a program like a little slave. So that's part of the process, like you were talking about earlier, is getting rid of all that shit. And then on the other side, developing the vocabulary so that when you do think about shit, it automatically is producing something that works.
Right. Like right away. I noticed, actually, I've seen it in all of you, and I saw it in myself, of the difference between, and I'll talk about myself because I could see the before. The before is like, I think about something and I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, what would that be like? And we just keep talking about it versus being like, oh, let's look that up. Oh, how much would it be to get that? Oh, remember like when the pandemic first hit, we all started looking up private jets and what it would take to like buy one.
Yeah.
It's like, I never would have done that before because I was never actually considering, one, I can change and grow my income to get what I want. This is why if you're working a job, it will fuck your mind up because you're constantly thinking about, oh, that's something that's out of my current income level, so I can't have it. I can only fit things into my current
income. That is why people then automatically turn to the thing they've been programmed to do, which is follow authority, because you went to school to get the job, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be getting a job. If you didn't go to school and you had a real education, you wouldn't be looking for a job. Right. So you have a job because you went to school, which means you were programmed to follow authority. So you're following that same program when you want something, which is, well, there's no fucking way I can create it with my current income. So the universe is going to have to give it to me. So you have people who come into the law of attraction, even within Jen. It's nothing against Jen. It's just realizing people need to upgrade their vocabulary. People come into it like, oh, I have all these things I want. But they're not realizing that the whole point of the training is so you'll fucking create a business or participate. I mean, the thing is, even as a distributor, here's the cool thing about Technotutor.
What are you gonna know the score in if you have a job?
Well, if you were gonna start a business, what would the business be? Like, are you gonna go also now invent something?
Isn't that how we always think about it?
Like, it's too late for that. You're not Elon fucking Musk. And even he doesn't invent shit. He just has an idea of things he wants to solve and goes and finds people already doing it.
Did you guys have that phase within you of like, you think about some nifty invention and you're like, man, what if I made a business out of this?
Yeah, of course. All the time. All the time.
Like,
I had lots of great ideas.
Right.
But now look, we're already solving the problem in education. So if somebody's like, look, I realized I want a business. Build a Technotutor business. Someone else will take the responsibility of developing the product and do all that stuff. And all you have to do is build the business itself, which is the marketing, the leads, the selling, and all that stuff.
Steve Jobs
didn't. Other things you can do that with. Amway, whatever. Like there's all kinds of stuff like that you can. You don't have to develop the product, but are any of those going to make a difference?
Hell no.
So my point is, now the problem is, if you had spent your whole life in school and in a job, now you got to invent something and you got to learn how to build a business. You're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at your dreams and you're like, well, the universe is going to have to just give it to me. It's like, oh yeah, like it gave you everything else. Oh, it was just my thinking. Going back to this point, it's like I got to change my thinking. It's like, no shit. Like, wait, the elite, they just think differently. No shit. But now you're staying within your current thinking that you're thinking differently.
Mm.
Guess what also is a product of your thinking? The
The
things
new
that
way of
you
thinking.
want. The things that you want.
Oh,
Your thinking is not your thinking. The same reason why you can't get what you want yet, which is what you're realizing you need to change, all of it comes with that.
dude, thank you. That's what I was trying to explain in that conversation that me and Mitch talked to that same guy.
Right.
It's like what you want
What you think
is
you want,
also a fucking
right.
problem. Yeah.
Because
gonna
and
make you
this is the key where the want part is the indicator, because it's a thought that's coming up. It's not versus Mitch saying, okay, I need a tiller. He has a goal for a garden. He has specific reasons. Is food something that you need?
Mm-hmm.
Is some level of self-sustainability something that you need in the current context of the world today, plus in building your business? So many dimensions. You can reason it out. You can show people why it's necessary.
So let me wrap up what you just did with Mitchell into a concept that people could look at for themselves. And this is actually what KT's saying. If you ask Mitchell why, focus on the why, he won't just say because I wanted.
Right. It's clear. You can see that. He's not like, oh, I just want to
He'll
garden.
be like, oh, because of this? You're like, wait, why do you want that?
To be honest, Mitch, when you see all the work involved, aren't you like, if based on that, I don't fucking want a garden. But
No, I'm still glad I have it, but it
no,
was
but
more
you see
than
what I'm saying
because you understand
if
the
you just
value.
based it on that.
yeah.
If it was just
Exactly.
based on a desire, a want, and you look at all that,
Right.
it's probably like for example, I don't want a tractor.
Mm-hmm.
I have things that I see that I need to do with it, and now I want it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because before I wouldn't have wanted it. Why would I want it?
I remember I asked somebody, I'm like, they were talking about what they wanted in the context. I don't remember the context, but I was like, do you know what that requires? And I just started walking them through it. I'm like, do you still want that? They're like, when you really like walk it through, like, no, I don't. I'm not willing to.
Let's start asking people, like when they say what they want, be like, okay, so tell me why you need that. Because isn't also for the your wishes, your command people, isn't that also what KT says is when it becomes something that you need?
Yeah.
When it becomes something that you're sick without it, that's when you'll get it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that's when it's going to show up in your life. It means that's when you're actually going to get it.
When you're going to do what it takes.
It's like he tells this story about this guy who wanted some kind of car or something. And it was for like a long time. He wasn't getting it and everything. And KT was like, until you're sick that you can't get it. So he's like, that's why you need to go and sit in the car every day and go look at it, the one you want, until you're so sick that you don't have it.
Yeah.
And what most people are doing is trying to avoid that. They're setting their goals in a way, and they're setting the way they focus on their goals in a way where they can avoid feeling bad about not having them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, and they're trying to use being positive as the excuse. But I can't focus on the negative. It's like, actually, by focusing on the negative, that's how you create positive. I mean, do you know how a fucking battery works?
Yeah.
Like, so I can only have positive. Like, name one thing in reality that works that way.
Yeah.
That's how the elite think. But they also know that there is negative. Guess who gets the negative?
The slaves.
Yeah, everybody else. So they know that there's positive and negative, but they've created systems or participated in creating systems, and so have we, where they just get the positive part and we get all the negative part.
So I want to bring something up because you had said, you don't necessarily want a tractor, except for when you see all the things that you need to get done and how a tractor would help that. Like somebody might play a word game and say, well, then you don't actually need a tractor. Like you could still do those things without a tractor, right? Like, is that a real need? And I know you've given the example already, like half a dozen times of like, well, can you actually work it out? Like, does it make sense of why you would do this or why you would use this versus?
Well, but what would be an example of I could do it without a tractor?
Use a shovel.
Let's say, yeah.
How long would it take with a shovel versus a tractor?
Yeah, it'd take
much
8
longer.
hours versus 20 minutes in a tractor.
Right. So what could I do with those 8 hours versus the 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what are my other needs? What are the other things that I'm doing?
Business, taking care of the kids,
Right. Like I could be spending an hour on the phone with somebody and then 20 minutes on the tractor.
Yeah. That makes
If
sense.
I was going to just use a shovel, I would just pay somebody to sit there and use a shovel.
Right.
But when I have something I want done right now, having the tractor, I can just go move it. Cool, it's done. Like, oh, I want to get that thing down from above the rafters in the barn or whatever. Okay, I can just use my tractor with like the forks on it and put it on there or whatever. Like it can... Now, if I was gonna build a fucking barn dominium, I'm not gonna do that myself. Like, could I learn all the skills and do all that stuff? Sure. But practically, what else could I do with the years that it would take me to do that? Where I could just come up with the money in a much shorter period of time. So it's just, so it's
You
like
don't need,
understanding.
You don't need the skill. You don't need the skills per se. You
I
just
already
need
have the
money
skill
for
from that
building.
person right there.
Yeah, you have it in this. Yeah,
That
yeah.
person
exactly.
is an extension of me.
That's kind of
Yes.
like what Ford said when they said, "Oh, Ford's an ignoramus," and he's like,
Right.
"Listen, all these stupid questions you're asking, I have people on my staff who can answer all of them. I don't
Right.
need to know them."
But I personally have a need to learn how to drive a tractor. So in a moment where I am doing something, I can do it. But that doesn't mean I need to now become a tractor driver 24/7. Because if I need something where like it's like a week's worth of tractor work, I'll just hire a tractor in. It's just going to depend on the context.
Yeah.
If it's 20 minutes every morning for a few weeks, just because that's all it's going to take, then I can do that. It might be worth it. Or also sometimes just being outside, taking a walk, doing some physical activity is also a physical need. I could just sit on the phone all day and talk to people, but I'm not meeting my physical needs. But I'm becoming stronger by doing some physical work every day. I don't need to do 12 hours of physical work.
You look slim too, dude. Saw that picture of you with the, I think it was the air compressor. And Max was taking the pictures.
Oh, it was a nail gun, yeah.
I'm like, damn, dude, slimming down. Shit.
Taking responsibility. That's all it is. I'm not doing anything on purpose to lose weight.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just not eating because I don't have time to do it. Like, I mean, I eat food, but I'm saying I eat lunch and then I eat the dinner that Katie makes.
Mhm.
And then
Rather than you have a bunch of free time, what am I gonna do? Let me eat something like, you know.
well, what it was in the past always was I feel bad. This
Yeah.
will make me feel good. And then it becomes an automated thing where you have to do it every day.
Yeah.
Out of habit. Otherwise,
or
if you
your
don't,
mood.
you start to feel bad all of a sudden. You're like, oh, like I need it. Oh, I'm watching some TV shows. I need to have some food.
Yes.
I mean, there's like a pattern. Like I'm sure many people go
Exactly.
through.
And then
So as
it's cool, like the symbol of responsibility means you start watching less TV shows. So you don't need the food to go with that. And it's like, and this is actually the fucking main point about why you'll never be able to just listen to an audio your way into success. You can't
Or
just
self-hypnosis yourself to being thin.
Exactly. Because
Like,
you'll never be able to figure out all the little points just by thinking about, okay, what do I need to adopt here? Okay, I got to be more focused. Okay. No,
Yeah.
the focus is going to be a symbol of your purpose here.
look at the points where you're resisting taking responsibility.
Mitchell, you're doing a nod face. What did you
Do those points, and then what'll happen is you'll have to face a lot of limitation. It's kind of like if I just looked at a piece of computer code and tried to figure out what's wrong with it, it would be very difficult. But if I run the computer code and I'm like, oh, that's not working properly. Now let me go find in the code where the problem is. That's a lot easier to do.
Right.
Than just studying the code. Like I'm like,
That's like looking at a composition, looking at all the notes and like trying to figure out like which one's the off note.
and there are people who can do that, but if you just listen to it, you're like, wait, hold on. Oh yeah, why are they playing a flat here or whatever? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like you'll see it then once you, so it's like the problem is people saying I'm working on myself. It's like, okay, so what are you actually physically creating? That's working on yourself, is creating something and then finding the limitation. And then that's why we're doing what we're doing, which is here's the tools, here's the support system that you need to be able to face those things effectively instead of it turning into, I can't fucking change anything. So let me just limit what I think I want and I can create and so forth to excuse myself from the, what is it?
Difficulty,
The shame
Right.
of not, which is that thing everyone's trying to avoid. So it's like, I'm okay with facing the what was that point I was saying earlier? The negative, the I don't have this yet.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I know I can change the things that's going to allow me to get it.
The
If you don't know
roadmap
you
of-
can change those things, then you'll be like, well, I'm not going to focus on the fact that I don't have it. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to be,
Yeah.
because like that's just going to make me feel bad. It's like I might feel a little bit bad because of that internal desire point is still there at some level, but hey, in a balanced way, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. You don't
I'm not saying totally get rid of all desire. I'm saying question what it is you desire and look at what's an obsessive desire that's not really coming from you based on any need that you have whatsoever. But it's okay if there's that little spark of emotion that kind of helps you. That's okay. It's a
It's
balance
like you stop
point.
judging it. You stop judging feeling bad and
It's like when your engine is working
Anger.
properly, is there going to be some vibration?
Yeah.
But if it's like doing this, like that's not good.
Right.
And if there's no vibration, it's not going to fucking go anywhere. So I'm not saying eliminate everything. I'm saying the stuff that's out of balance. Like if you're a dude and you're spending all your time trying to fuck hot chicks, you know what you're not doing?
Building a business.
Well, you're definitely not building a relationship.
That's yeah. That
And
too.
you're definitely never going to have kids. And then when you get your business and you make some money, if you do, you're going to be like, this is pointless.
Right.
And then you're going to be like, oh, now I need to go get a relationship.
You know,
Now I need to have something to do to provide for.
I know you guys have been saying it like the whole time, like especially like Mitch and Asif about this guy who's got to change his thoughts of what he wants and everything. But it just really clicked why KT will say, like, you don't want to do hypnosis. You don't want to get into hypnosis and have somebody try to hypnotize you to get what you want, because that's like really just solving the symptom rather than
right.
like changing the root of what the fuck
And
is
I've
wrong.
been there. I've tried
Yeah.
to do all that stuff.
How'd it go? Well, obviously it's working, right? You're here.
Yeah, look at your life now.
It was the moment that I stopped searching and I'm like, I have all the tools. Why don't I just actually apply myself here and stop looking for the magic, that one thing, next thing that you were saying, that one key or whatever it was that KT was talking about. We already have those things. The problem is people are like, so you might say like, oh, but you said there isn't a key. There is. It's Technotutor, Gen, Destiny. Did I miss anything? I mean, Self-Perfected is the umbrella around that. It's those things. But how can I say that those are the keys when I'm saying there's not one little key, it's a million things? Because they're the keys to access all those million little things.
Yes.
But the difference between these keys versus that key you're looking for is these keys, there is no room for not taking full self-responsibility. The reason why someone's looking for the key over here is because they're thinking it's that thing. If they just find it, everything starts working. Like, versus what we're saying is, here are the keys. But when you start using them, you're not going to immediately get what you want. It's going to be a process. And there's going to be times where you feel like you finally made it. But then because what we're doing is based on self-honesty and the biggest possible vision, you're going to be, but I'm not stopping here. Which means you don't ever have to go into fear of loss.
Yeah.
Because you're already going to die. It's like, imagine being afraid of dying. You're going to die.
No, wait, hold on. Let me slow that down for a second. That's such a good point. It's like, imagine being afraid that you're going to have to go use the bathroom. It's like, you better fucking make peace with it because you're going to need to take a shit soon.
It's going to happen. Like
Inevitability.
You know, I was talking with Max last night. He was falling asleep, and he said he was laying there, and he goes, you know, back when we lived in Houston, I was afraid of picking up that it was like, I forget what it's called, like, oh, tomato horned moth caterpillar. I think that's what it's called. It's just like a caterpillar that has some like long and kind of like antenna spiky things on it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's not venomous as far as I know. And he goes, you know, back when we lived in Houston, I was afraid of picking up that tomato horned moth caterpillar. And I was, he said, I was afraid of it. And I was like, oh, really? And he goes like, well, back when we lived in Houston. And I said, well, what about now? Would you pick it up now? He's like, oh yeah. He goes, I pick up lots of things now. I pick up spiders. He goes, well, I mean, not the venomous ones, right? And I was like, that's really cool. And it was just cool because he was having a moment where he was recognizing that he's changed.
Wow.
And that there was something he was afraid of doing, and now he has no problem doing it. And yet he's smart about it. Like when he sees a caterpillar that's real fuzzy, we don't pick those up because it could be an asp and this fucking can sting you and it can really hurt. So he knows, like, don't pick those up. He's not afraid of it though. Because if it didn't sting, he would pick it up. I mean, he's not afraid of caterpillars, but he knows, don't pick up that one. That would be stupid. So you see, like, well, if I'm not afraid of stuff, then I'm just gonna like just shoot myself in the face. Like,
dude, that's so.
I'm not
amazing,
afraid
though.
of guns, but I don't shoot myself. Like, come on.
That's so amazing. Like, he's noticing and recognizing within himself that he's changed, and he's 4. He's 4 years old. Like, I need to emphasize that because there are adults who are not changing, and looking for, how do I change? This is a child who's not just growing, but aware of himself and aware of the way that he's changing, and has the vocabulary to express that. And he knows that he's going to continue growing. It's just amazing,
This morning I was making some coffee, and he came in and he had his like a little black and red checkered like robe on. And earlier he had been wearing this yellow and gray blanket. He's been wearing that yellow and gray blanket a lot lately, like just walking around with it outside. Like he'll just wear that. And he calls himself Lace the duck. So he's pretending to be a female duck named Lace. And that's his costume that he wears when he's Lace the duck. And he came in this morning and he had that red thing on. And he told me,
shirt, no?
Yeah, it's like a plaid style, but it's like a robe, right?
Okay.
It's a kid's robe. And he's like, pick me up. So I picked him up. And he said, what did he say? I said, oh, you're not Lace right now? Because I was making a point because he was wearing, I said, you're wearing that robe. You're not Lace? And he goes, no, I am. And I was like, oh, but you're wearing this thing. He goes, well, this is a wizard costume. And he said, right now, Lace is pretending to be a wizard. He said, well, I'm pretending to be Lace, and Lace is pretending to be a wizard. So he's like doing multiple levels.
Story in the story. Remember when you talked about that?
Right.
When he was
But
reading
he's
the book?
aware of all of it.
Inception.
It's like he's able to pretend, but he's aware, and that's okay. Like, versus the child who argues with you, no, I really am a duck. And it's like, do they really believe that? How far have they gone into it? Like, so he's able to play within it, but be very fully aware, like, I'm just pretending. Right? There's many times over the past week where I've come into the house from being outside, and I'll just hear in one of the rooms someone yelling, quack, quack, quack. And he's just in there quacking. and he'll make jokes. Like when he's the duck, he said, what were we doing? He'll take words and he'll put quack into it, where it doesn't even make sense. Like I was talking about some kind of coil on something, and he goes, do you know what Lace would call that? And I said, what? And he goes, a coil. A coil, get it? Because coil sounds like, it rhymes with quack, right? Because when he says rhymes, he means it can have the same sound at the beginning or the end, right? So it's just really interesting. He's
Damn.
And it's actually really cool with Seneca too, because her vocabulary is developing very quickly as well. And I was trying to remember something. It was really funny that she said to me, but she's always explaining stuff. Like she's always like, Cam, do you know why I'm doing that? And I'm like, why? And she goes, because, and then she'll like explain it.
That's so cute.
Right.
She learned that
Yeah.
from you guys, right?
Right. We just explain everything. Right.
So cool.
But it's cool because they're both being supported to.
How old is she now? Like 2.5?
She'll be 3 in October,
Okay.
and he'll be 5 in October, right? But they're both learning. Oh, that's another cool story. I was in the shop working on something. Max was saying to me, Cam, it's dinner time. Kitty said it's dinner time. He said it a few times. And I was like, okay. But then I was continuing with what I'm doing. And then after a while, he came up to me and he turned off the fan and he goes, I'm not trying to create an argument, but I just want to let you know it's dinner time and Katie wants you to come to the house. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, I'll come over now. Because he was telling me it was dinner time, but I wasn't doing it. And I wasn't really explaining myself. I was just like, okay, thanks for letting me know. And I was just going to finish what I was doing and then come over. But he was waiting for that acknowledgement of not only did I hear him, but I'm going to do.
Tell me your plan. Yeah.
Right. No, it's not a big deal, but it was really interesting the way he said, I'm not trying to create an argument. Because he was thinking, based on my behavior, that I was disagreeing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care. And I didn't say it, but I wasn't clear with them. Like, okay, thanks for telling me. I'll be over there. I should have said that. Now, it's like you wouldn't even think that was necessary because people will take for granted like the vocabulary of the child. But he's very specific. Like he understands it's time, and then your behavior is going to indicate what you're doing. I mean, there's so many dimensions to it. But it was just really cool. He's like, I'm not trying to create an argument, but it is dinner time, and Katie wants you to come over. And I was like, oh, I was just trying to finish what I'm doing, but I'm done now. I'll come over now. And it's just little things like that.
Dude,
it's so profound.
Oh my God. And even in the next 6 months, like after the gin event and everything.
Oh, he's gonna love it.
Dude, wait till you guys see Seneca, man. Like it's
so cool.
It's really incredible. And now with both of them being super high vocabulary and being able to explain themselves.
And then that'll feed into each other as well, because then they have their relationship. So then that'll expedite it all even more.
Yeah.
So it's like
I'll tell you one more quick story. Like, because we got a puppy, right? And he's big. He's like your dog, right? I mean, even when he's a puppy, he's
Is he
like
that
massive,
big?
right? He's as big as our other dog already.
Oh,
Big
wow.
Wow.
Yeah. He's already bigger than Macy. And anyway, so he's a puppy. The puppies like to bite. They like to jump up and chew and bite. You know how they are, right? So Seneca is very small, right? And the puppy kept jumping on her, you know, trying to bite, nibble at her, that kind of stuff, right? Obviously, we're not just going to let the dog do that. But in the very, very beginning, like the first, like, let's say week or so, he would start biting on her or jumping at her, or just like if she had something, he's trying to get it, right? And her communication with him was just like getting frustrated and then trying to run away and scream or cry. But then that kind of made the dog want to go even harder. You know what I'm saying? Like you're playing a game or something.
Yeah.
So we had to explain to her that's what's happening. He's not trying to hurt you. But that doesn't mean allow it to happen. So we said to him, you're going to have to tell him off, because we train our dogs. The only thing we really train them on is just the word off. Like that means stop doing what you're doing. Right. And the way we do, we just give them a treat and we wait until they go for it. We say off and we don't let them have it until they stop. And then we give them the treat. It's pretty fucking simple. And we also train them with sit, but that was not even as specific. We don't care so much about sit, off. And it's really cool because both of our previous dogs, they learned if they're doing something, I say off, they just stop.
Yeah, I saw that so evidently.
So it just becomes our way of saying, like, to be able to direct them, right? Mm-hmm. So we're doing that with him. And so in the beginning, it's like he would try to jump on her, all this stuff. She would cry and she would go into like a crying thing of like, you know, like kind of like a, like it'd be like for a moment, she'd be like crying, right? Like, and so obviously we want to support her with that. So we kept emphasizing to her, tell him off, right? Don't just try to hit him or something. That's not going to work. Like he doesn't understand if you're just screaming or crying or whatever, what you're doing. So we got treats and we started training him, and then we showed her how to do it. And like, I didn't even show her how to do it. I just came back one day and Sydney goes, I'm going to train Cody. And I was like, Cody's a dog. And I was like, okay. So she was like, can you give me the treats? So I gave her the bag of treats. She got some out. Or no, I think she had some bacon, whatever it was. It didn't matter. She had something. And she goes, Cody, he was sitting already. and she walks away from him. She kind of like backs up and she goes, come. And he comes and sits over there and she goes, sit, Cody, sit. And finally he sits. And she goes like this, off. And then he grabs it. She goes, good boy. Right? It was so cute the way she did. She goes, off, good boy. And she like immediately pets him like, good boy.
Yeah.
And then she like looks at me.
Yeah.
Right? And I posted a video of it.
Uh-huh.
And this was the first time I saw her do it, was that video I posted. It was like the second time I saw her do it. But she keeps doing it, right? So it's been like a couple weeks, I guess, since we've had the puppy, right? There's no more of that crying or anything. Like when the dog jumps at her, whatever, she'll just tell him off, or she might not say off, or she might get a little like, get off of me, but she doesn't go into the crying anymore. And so within it, it's like he supported her and we supported her to fucking stand up. If someone's bullying you,
Cody, right?
Yeah. Somebody's bullying you. Obviously, in that context, he's not trying to hurt her, and we told her that, but he's dominating her physically, like just, even though it's not his intention, and we know that. Like, okay, we're going to support you to get him to stop, but you need to stand up within yourself and not go into an emotional reaction about it. Like, don't go into a victim, because that's what she was doing, was like, I'm being attacked sort of thing, right? And now she doesn't do that anymore. She's like assertive with the dog, and she's this little tiny, skinny little,
dainty,
tiny little thing. Yeah, like dainty, right? And this big dog who's bigger than her, probably weighs as much more than her. And she's like she's not going into it anymore. And what will happen is a lot of times parents they'll create a personality for the child based on something they observe and then start projecting it onto it. Oh, Seneca's just afraid of dogs. Wow. Oh, that's our one. She's always been afraid of dogs. Yeah, she always just goes in, she always cries with dogs. Or instead we're like, no, that's not acceptable. And people sometimes misunderstand, like, oh, you're not identifying with her as the victim of this thing. You're not considering where she's at and her being compassionate. I'm like, I am being compassionate. I'm teaching her to stand the fuck up.
Yeah.
That's real compassion.
Yeah.
Like, I do understand the feeling of that dog jumping on her and biting at her and stuff. And it's not like hurting, but just, like how puppies do.
Scary. It's like,
But being her in that context, she's never had a puppy before.
Right.
She's never been around a puppy like that before. It's a new thing. And suddenly we're in this new place and this big giant dog is suddenly biting her all the time. So 2 options. One, we can make the dog is bad and, oh, it's so bad for you, Cindy. I'm so sorry that happens to you. Or train the dog and tell her to stand and support her to stand up and give her the vocabulary to stand up and tell her and support her with it. And that's always my approach with everybody. So if you come to me with weakness, I'm going to treat you like I did with Seneca. I'm not going to pretend like this is a big bad thing. And I'm not going to pretend like you're a victim. I'm going to support you to develop the vocabulary to stand up and no longer accept that point. But then also create conditions where you can manage this point that's happening so that it's not constantly, but also you need to stand up and not blame this other thing. Do you see? And sometimes people, they don't, in that moment, I think the biggest barrier I've seen to people not taking advantage of the support that I would offer them if someone comes to me, or any of you really coming to you, is they're not, it's like, this is that point where personal will, in the sense of willingness, in the sense of like just pushing yourself to do something. It's the only thing I think really you have to push yourself within. Well, 2 points really. Use the fucking tools. Use them. Be self-honest. And that, I think that's really the part where you have to push yourself. It's not about the tools per se. It's like pushing yourself. Because if you just fucking do it, it's how hard is it to fucking type on a keyboard? But that's not why people won't do it. It's not because that's hard. Right. It's because the self-honesty part is hard. Mm-hmm. It's like that pushing yourself within. I have to be honest with myself. I'm not a victim. I don't want to be a victim. It's not best to be a victim. So I have to change the thing and I have to do something differently. If you can push yourself within that point and then just use the tools, the other part's easy.
I remember probably 3-4 years ago when I started using Technotutor, and it was really helping me, right? And I was like, I developed my reading. Like, I actually wanted to read. I changed that part of myself because I was looking at all the other points, but I didn't have a full understanding. I didn't even have a basic understanding of Technotutor and how to use it. I
It was
just
like your entry point was, okay, I'm going to learn how to read more effectively.
exactly. I'm like, okay, I met Cameron and Avery at a gym event. They said, yo, dude, you can program yourself. I'm like, what do you mean program yourself? Right? He's like, like you're like it's kind of like you break all information down to ones and zeros like a computer. So if you change the way you're breaking down that information, you can change the output that you're getting. I'm like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be using. That's what the custom list is for. Okay. So when I went home, I'm like, what can I test this on that I haven't been able to develop for the fucking life of me? That if I do, I could be like, oh shit, that was definitely techno-tutor. Because I was doing all kinds of stuff like energy clearing. I had a life coach, all this different stuff, right?
Can I interject real quick, Asif? Just I want to make this point clear for everybody. That's the difference between all that other stuff like you were just mentioning versus what we're saying, which is you know what you want now. Let's say you're clear on that. Let's say you've been honest about what you actually want and it's practical. Okay. Now, the difference between what we're saying versus the typical law of attraction thing is don't just keep wanting it. That's not how you get it. Now, reprogram yourself to be able to create it.
Mm-hmm.
And in whatever context, like if you want a Ferrari, you don't need to build a Ferrari factory and create machine tools and create the fucking thing yourself. Build a business that gives you the money to do it, but you have to create the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so to do that, you have to have the vocabulary of whatever the business is, and then all the other stuff that comes along with building a business. So what we're saying is, yes, focus on what you want 100%. But the missing component is now program yourself with the vocabulary. And along with that, all of the problems within your mindset, limitations, fears, that all that is considered your programming. So as you start that process, you'll start to see this thing coming into view that you want.
So
and what's interesting is what KT says is, he says, what's the feeling that you're going to have that's going to indicate that what you want is like right at your doorstep?
Like it's coming in.
Excitement.
Yeah. It's like you're getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you'll know it's right there. The moment it's like you're going to get it that moment you feel like you have it. Like you really have it. But it's interesting because I always feel that way as soon as the box is there from Amazon. I never feel like it's there until it's there.
Yeah.
How can you feel something that's not real? Isn't there always going to be some doubt until you have it? Stop trying to eliminate all doubt. The thing is, you can't artificially eliminate doubt. It's like even with what we're doing, you can't just have belief in what we're saying and you're not doing it. How? Like, I would just say you're a fucking idiot then. Like, no, I just know what you guys are doing is the best and it's important. It's like, are you doing it yet? No, but I just know it. It's like, you don't really, because you haven't applied it yet and seen it for yourself. That's like saying, I know. It's like, how can you know something when you don't know it? Knowing and belief are two different things. We're not asking you to believe in anything. Know it. Which means create it within yourself and do it, and then you'll know it.
Yeah.
You can't know it until you know it.
Yeah.
It's like, do you know 2 + 2 is 4, or do you believe 2 + 2 is 4?
No, you know it.
Now, if you ask a 5-year-old, not my 5-year-old, but if you ask an average 5-year-old, what's 2 + 2? They'll tell you maybe 4, right? Maybe. But do they know it?
No, they don't know it.
Nope.
They don't. They were just told it.
Yeah.
Max knows it.
Yeah.
If you ask him, well, how do you know? He'd be like, count them. Like, he knows it and he knows why. You see what I mean? Because you can explain why. So the same thing with your wants. If you just want it, but you don't know why, you don't actually want it. And that's the problem. You don't actually want it. And just talking about that guy you were talking about before, he doesn't actually want those things. I know he doesn't. Because I wanted those things. And then as I actually started pushing myself in what matters, I realized I don't want those things. Because for you to want fucking every hot girl on the face of the earth, what is it that they have to want?
To fuck you.
Yeah, they have to want your dirty, slimy dick in them. Why would they want it?
Right.
What's in it for them? Does the guy even consider what's in it for them?
No.
Because what is it that woman really wants?
Be cared for.
I'm gonna have money. I'm gonna have money. So
She wants to
But like what Mitch said too, like she wants to be cared for.
Mhm.
And if you're just fucking her because of the way she looks, which is like, I want you guys to imagine, here's the next one, okay? Here's a spell. I want you to imagine Pythagoras. You know what Pythagoras was?
Pythagoras theorem, Pythagorean theorem.
Mathematician, yeah.
Right? So he was like, he had a cult around mathematics and geometry and so forth.
Like
right?
he did, or imagine that he did.
No, he did.
Okay.
Right? They called it a cult, but you can just think of it as a school, right? But I want you to imagine him, like, and he's got on his chalkboard or whatever they had, he's got like a triangle and he's got like a square, and he's just like, oh, yeah, look at that triangle. Okay. That seems so ridiculous, right? Like this guy's jerking off to like geometric forms.
Right.
But isn't that what you're doing when you see a hot woman?
Yes.
Got him.
It's just like a really complicated geometrical shape.
Mhm.
Where's the essence in it? Now, if it's a beautiful woman and you like a beautiful woman, that's fine. Like, I'm not saying you need to have a woman that you don't find beautiful, because you can work within your programming. But if you only are going for that, I mean, come on, what does everybody know? The typical average hot girl, how does her personality?
Sucks.
Now, what's cool is with what we're doing, even the typical hot girl can change herself and become amazing. So we're not saying it has to be that way, for those of you who think we're just judging people, right? But what I'm saying is, we know based on the programming that they're just probably a bitch. They're just going to manipulate. They're just going to whine and cry and get everything.
Very shallow.
Just like Seneca, right? I don't know what she's going to look like when she's older, but she's a really, from my perspective, maybe it's because I'm her dad, she's a beautiful little girl child.
Yeah, bias for sure. Yeah.
She's going to be she's the kind of kid that the dad would just give everything to,
Right.
like a little princess.
Yeah.
But I don't treat her that way.
Hmm.
She likes to play princess. Max likes to play princess. But we don't treat them like princesses. Oh, you're a princess, so you get what you want. No, okay, what is it that you want? Okay, why do you want that? Okay, what's our agreement? Da, da, da. You want to pretend like a princess? That means you're putting on a dress. That's all it means. And what's the real princess in the real world? And is that actually best? No, okay. So what I'm saying is, like, she's a girl. She likes to play princess, whatever. But I still support her to develop within herself strong character. That's actually best. So why are these really beautiful girls or women bitches and retarded and all this stuff and emotionally manipulative? Because that's how they were treated. Because somebody was placing unnecessary value on their good looks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then therefore not supporting them with the other parts. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like, oh, because you're beautiful, that's why. These beautiful women who are strong, have strong character as well. But what I'm saying is, usually they're crazy. So if you're a guy who's just looking to screw a bunch of hot chicks, like, are you actually going to be able to meet her emotional needs? And what does she actually need? And so you don't really care about her. And so what kind of a person are you if that's all you care about is masturbating to geometry? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, who are you? Like, that's it? That's your whole life? Like, that's like in the hierarchy of the evolution of being a male, a man. So a male man, not a female man.
A mailman?
A mailman. You deliver some packages. But I'm saying it was say man, obviously it can imply women as well, right? But I'm saying as a male, right? As a man, the evolution of it is like, that's a baseline.
Mhm.
And dude, every guy knows, like, you don't really care. But there's a self-esteem point. We know all that. So I'm just saying the point about wanting to all these women and everything, it's not, you don't actually want it. And you won't necessarily know you don't want it until you get something that's actually better.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, oh, fuck, I actually don't really care about that. Doesn't mean there can't be some points that come up, right? Like where you still find women attractive.
Yeah.
But if you've mastered yourself, you won't allow that to become a point where it's directing you and directing your focus. Because you can direct yourself. So these guys who are coming to you and saying like, oh, they just want this and that, most of the time they're not directing themselves at all. They're just following their feelings. They're just followers.
I know who I was when I wanted that.
Same.
Fucking loser.
Yeah,
Right.
you were.
Yeah. Step by step, though, right?
No,
I was
I was
talking.
in the same boat. I was in the same boat.
I was talking to Casper.
I like that you're using the past tense.
Oh yeah.
That's very
100%.
future pacing of you. No, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
future facing. Okay.
Since we're ragging on each other, it seems to be. No, but yeah.
I was talking to Casper. Somebody's been in Destiny for like 10 years, and he was making this point about. I was asking him like how he found Destiny, right? And it was like 10 years ago. And he's talking about how, somebody introduced him to self-forgiveness after he saw some YouTube videos, whatever. And he was doing self-forgiveness to the degree where he then realized, oh, in order to further my process, I can't just be at my house. Like I have to go out. And the way that I figure out where I still have to push myself is by going out into the world. I was like, oh, that's really cool. It's kind of like, oh, I've mastered this level of responsibility. Right. Okay. Now I go out into the, oh, now I need to get a job. Oh, damn. I need to do a job interview. Wow. I have a bunch more fears. Okay. I'm going to work through that. Here's the point. And this is in reference to a point that Cameron was making earlier about what is the roadmap to self-mastery? It's very, very, very simple. And the reason why we say Technotutor, Destiny, Jin, these are the keys, is because they will get you to realize that you are the key. And when I say realize, I mean you're going to make real. You're going to take 100% responsibility as a consequence of applying this process, because you're going to realize that everything in your life you can take responsibility for. If Cameron was still giving into that point within him of like, oh, my special little girl, he would have been like, oh, I need to protect her from Cody. Maybe I don't know if we should have the dog here or all this stuff. He would have supported Seneca to become that character of a princess. That's why he was bringing up that story of like Seneca. I could support that personality and character in her where she becomes this pretty girl who everybody just gives her everything just because she's good looking in the system, because that's what the parents support at a very young age. He's like, but I'm not going to do that because it's about merit. It's about who you are, right? So the point within that is, okay, how do you measure where you still need to grow? It's so simple. Go out into the world and create something. The thing that you'll run into is everything that you think of creating is within your thinking. In the same way that what we're talking about, the point of law of attraction, all this stuff about how we always think about it wrong. We're not going to be able to solve all the points that you're thinking about it wrong on these podcasts. We're giving you the points where you've never considered before, so you can see that there's value to walking this process. The reason why that's an important difference is because there is nobody, there's no mentor, there's no life coach, there's no audio series that is going to be able to walk you through all of your problems. You have to do that for yourself. And there's no amount of subconscious hypnosis or tapping or anything like that that will actually get you to become self-aware and take responsibility for what you've accepted inside of you. It's just the tools. It's not special. It's not complicated. Just go try to do something in the context of the principles. Because the principles, for example, if you don't have the vocabulary to realize the things that we talk about, you're not just going to figure it out, because your thinking is creating the kind of thinking that interprets your wishes, your command as, you interpret your wishes, your command in a way that will fuck you over. You interpret everything in a way that it enslaves you. So there's only one answer. It's the principles. Investigate all things and keep that which is good. Question everything within you, but your ability to do that will be limited based off your vocabulary. your ability to question what's within you and become teachable in all those points, to let go of your reactions and change what you want. And all of those points will always be in the context of how much did you use your technotutor on that specific point, so that you can become aware of it, stop it in a moment, and take self-direction like Cameron was talking about. Because if you can't answer why, if you can't come up with the reasons for why you want what you want, it's not coming from you. You didn't realize the importance or the need in your life, and that's why you don't have it. What we're suggesting is what you need is to take on responsibility. And then when you go to do that, the reason why you suck at personal development is because you just want to get better. You don't actually see a value of it. You're just trying to get the Mercedes. You're just trying to get that whatever bullshit relationship, that the way you're thinking about a relationship is just someone to make you feel good. When you actually commit yourself to building something real in this world, then your personal development journey begins. But it's actually self-perfection. Because in order to actually get the result you want, it requires you to remove the faults within you that produce the results that you don't want. And the word that describes what I just said, the process of removing faults, it's called perfection. Call me Joe Biden. I'm whispering into the microphone. Just pay them more. So my point within that is, we're literally going to say the same thing every podcast. Take more fucking responsibility. If you don't know what to do, talk to one of us so we can tell you why we became distributors, and you'll be able to understand, because we're saying don't believe, understand, write it out for yourself, and it will never work. Nothing will ever work until you understand it for yourself. That's the whole point of writing. That's the whole point of using TechnoTutor. So use the tools. And like Cameron said, this is for a lot of people who aren't consistent with the tools yet, or who are not using it and just listen to the podcast for basically entertainment, and you're not being self-honest. You are going to need to push yourself to use the tools. If you want emotional mastery, I was talking to somebody, right? And they want emotional mastery. If you want emotional mastery, guess what? You're going to have to become a fucking master at something. And it's not easy. It's simple. Just use the tools every day. But you're going to have to push past this point of, I only do things for survival. If you want to become a master, you're going to have to push yourself. That's what Cameron was describing. So push yourself to reach out. Push yourself to use the tools every single day. Push yourself to consider, oh, is it true that I have to only do what I'm focused on and only want what I want? Or can I expand beyond that? Because the way I figured out my purpose is by thinking, okay, fuck what I want for literally just an hour. So I can imagine, okay, what's the biggest purpose that I can conceive of? My point within all of that is, there's no one that's going to save you. There's no one that can walk this for you. There's no one that can point out all your flaws. You have to do it for yourself. So join this Facebook group, like, comment, subscribe, come on the Hangouts. You know what's really cool, actually? Have you guys seen that welcome post?
Yeah.
It's really cool because you can see the people who've come on over the last week, or sorry, where we're at as a group. You can really see everybody changing and leveling up.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. And we're getting all these testimonials like Corey. Drake, that was, you shared with Corey, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you who weren't on the last Hangout, go back to the last Hangout. What was the date on Friday? It'll say 07, 09 or 10, 21.
09. Yeah.
09. And just watch at least the beginning of the live stream, if not the whole thing. Corey's story is fucking awesome. And that's somebody who does not make excuses. Be like Corey, right? They saw what we're doing. They went all in, and now they're here. And it really, really supported them. So if you apply that within yourself of, okay, I'm not going to accept excuses. I'm going to do what it takes to get what I want. You'll have everything you want. Even the Lambo and the beautiful woman and all that crap. Somebody who really makes you happy, and you get fucking everything. Just stop bullshitting yourself. That's all.
Nice. So Yeah. Comment, share, like, send this to people. And we'll see you on the next one.
Somebody said sending it one-on-one. If you think this will benefit someone in particular, send it directly to them.
Yes. Yeah,
I'll really
that's
be careful
huge.
for that.
Because they don't know that you're trying to send it to them when you just post it on your Facebook, right? Send it to them directly. And it's so interesting. Like I usually expect that from getting all this information, I expect, because I do this for myself, that then you're just going to do it, you know? And so just fucking do it.
True. Cool.
Right. Send it there. See ya.